Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Jinx updated complete guide for patch 3, sorry not 3, 4.3a onwards. And of course, as usual, don't forget to take a look at Jinx's basic guide that I will put up in the cards above for her skills, leveling order tips and tricks, as well as some of her combos. So Jinx, a lot like many other champions, for example Tristana, which we just covered, has the same sort of deal where you, of course, with the addition of Berserker's Greaves, you can now itemize with Berserker's Greaves to get a lethal tempo, which should give you enough attack speed for basically the entire game, and this allows you to pick up a lot more AD items a lot earlier, items like IE and BT, which is going to give you a lot more damage a lot more early on, compared to, of course, going for a Phantom Dancer as your first or second item, which is, of course, going to give you a ton of attack speed. However, that is going to delay your actual AD items, which overall is going to, of course, make you spike a little bit later, although probably the spike is going to be harder. So anyways, let's jump straight into talking about her build. So first up, you want to of course go for a shield bow for of course the baseline stats of a little bit of AD crit attack speed, as well as a little bit of physical vamp and the lifeline shield as well. Now you can also go for Stormrazor in matches where you don't need that shield, and Stormrazor is actually still a really strong item. Most people are starting to figure it out, not figure out, but starting to realize that especially with the nerfs to shield bow a couple of patches ago, especially because of that, Stormrazor is actually now really good as well. Basically almost the same stat line as shield bow. The main trade-off is of course the survivability for the damage, and of course in matchups where you don't have a lot of assassins or engage, Stormrazor is definitely going to be better to get the extra damage, to get the extra slows, and of course the early game power to start snowballing. So it's between shield bow and Stormrazor. Then of course for your next item, you want to go for your Berserker's Greaves, of course, to get that 30% attack speed, as well as a little bit of movement speed and AD. After that, you can go straight into IE, of course, for a huge power spike of getting the huge amount of AD as well as the increased crit damage. Then what I like to do personally is I like to go for BT as my third item. Now, the old build was you kind of used to go for like Runaan's Hurricane first and then BT later on, but actually, I think that going for BT earlier is going to give you a pretty huge spike in terms of your AD. So you're going to get, 40 AD from here, 55 AD from here, and 55 AD from here as well. And then, of course, it also gives you the physical vamp, which is going to be very helpful. And then we go for, of course, the Maul Reminder for the penetration as well as the Grievous Wounds. And finally, for your last item, you go for an attack speed item, something like Runaan's Hurricane. Of course, this is not so much for the attack speed, but more so actually for the passive. The Wind Fury passive, which allows you to attack 3 enemies at the same time to boost your AoE damage. Of course, you have like 2 other options here. You could go for Rapid Fire Cannon here to get, of course, a long range auto instead of having like the triple attack at the same time. This long range auto is going to deal an insane amount of damage because, of course, at this point you're going to be full built. You could also go for a defensive option like Guardian Angel, of course, for that revive. And finally, as your last like attack damage kind of option, you could actually also go for Phantom Dancer as your last item to, of course, give you that movement speed and, of course, the attack speed as well. But personally, my favorite choice is generally going to be Runaan's Hurricane. Of course, sometimes the choice is specific to the game, but that is generally the choices that you have. So for the runes, as I mentioned, you go for Lethal Tempo because you're building a lot of AD items and not so much attack speed. So Lethal Tempo is going to give you the attack speed that you need throughout the early and mid game, all the way until you really get your Runaan's Hurricane. Of course, the Berserker's Greaves also is another source of attack speed. Brutal, of course, because you're attacking a lot. Coup de Grace, of course, to help you kill off low HP enemies and get resets. Giant Slayer is also really good into matches with a lot of tanks, and in the gameplay later, I actually take Giant Slayer because I was against a really tanky team. And here, honestly, you could go for Bloodline or you could go for Alacrity. Now, personally, I go for Bloodline because, as I mentioned, I feel that Berserker's Greaves plus Lethal Tempo is enough attack speed. But then again, for Bloodline, you do, of course, have the vamp from both Shield Bow as well as Bloodthirster as well already. So really, I feel like between Bloodline and Alacrity, it's kind of a personal preference, and I like Bloodline better. And of course, next up we have Bone Plating for the survivability. For the spells, you want to take Flash, and you pretty much always want to take Ghost because Jinx always values the mobility of like kiting in and out of fights or just running away or whatnot, just in general, way more than like Exhaust, because most of the time the mobility from Ghost is going to help you out way more. Of course, if you're against a very heavy assassin comp like Rengar jungle, Akali mid, that kind of thing, you of course could go for Exhaust as well if the match really calls for it, but I think 80 to 90% of the time you are going to be taking Ghost. So with all that said, let's jump straight into talking about our gameplay. Okay, so now jumping straight into our gameplay. Now, as usual, of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Any questions, queries, or remarks, feel free to leave them in the comments below. So in this particular gameplay, I actually took Giant Slayer as a rune, because as you guys can see, the enemy team is super tanky in a sense that, of course, Giant Slayer damage skills off of the enemy's health. And here we have an Alistar who's going to be building a lot of health, Swain as well, and Fiora as well. So a lot of Giant Slayer value here. Of course, technically speaking, coup de grace is always going to be a good option because of how you always want to get someone low and you always want to kill them. So it kind of really depends on what's your preference and what the situation of the enemy team's tankiness really is. But personally, I like to take Giant Slayer when I see a couple of tanky targets, because of course Jinx has a lot of trouble killing tanky targets unless you are of course super fed. In which case, honestly, sometimes you still you know, face issues killing tanky targets. Jinx is sort of like the kind of carry that deals a lot better with like squishy or like squishy targets, or like maybe even fighters. Like Fiora may not be too big of a problem, but a real tanky guy like Alistar is gonna be a problem. So anyways, here we're in the lane, we're with a Soraka. Of course, Jinx plays the best with enchanters. Jinx doesn't really want an engager, she really wants an enchanter who can buff her up and keep her alive. Here, Alistar, no idea what he's doing. He's kind of just messing up his combo. He just headbutts nobody. Now, he pulverizes nobody. He headbutts me now. And here I'm just trying to get damage in on him. Meanwhile, Soraka's getting chased down by Jhin. Here, both of them are really low. I'm flashing over, focusing the Jhin using my my minigun. We get the kill on Jhin. Alistar just flashes straight into a wall, messes up mechanically. Soraka picks up the kill onto the Alistar, and we get a nice 2v2 kill, giving me the reset. And with the reset, of course, no one else to kill here, so I'm going to use that additional attack speed I get to quickly clear out the minions. Next wave is here as well, so we're going to quickly get rid of these minions, and then we can of course go ahead and get ourselves a reset, and of course start buying items. So honestly, in this match, seeing as we're ahead, we could have gone for Storm Razor, but in this match I actually eventually decide to go for Shield Bow. Of course, both components for Storm Razor and Shield Bow are identical, so you really only need to make a decision when you can complete the full item. But the main reason why I felt that Shield Bow was better in this match is mainly because there are champions like Twitch, Fiora, who can like kill us very easily. So I thought that shield would come in really handy, and even Alistar, if he hard engages onto us, could lead us to getting bursted down by like someone like Jhin or Twitch on the enemy team. So I really valued the safety over like the pure damage, which is of course once again both matchup dependent as well as personal preference. So yeah, so now with a kill lead and with a gold lead, of course we're in really good shape. Of course, Jinx does take some time to scale, so even with a kill, you know, Jhin still is a threat because Jhin is really strong in the early game compared to Jinx. So we still of course have to be careful. We can't just get engaged on willy-nilly. Now here, speaking of which, Alistar actually engages on us, and we are able to blast him down together with, of course, getting the traps on. Unfortunately, Alistar pops the ult, which prevents me from really killing him. Here we're trying to blast down Jhin instead, and here we actually get him really low. Unfortunately, we already popped the ulti onto the Alistar, so we aren't able to finish off either of them. But it's really not that bad because this allows us to take control of the lane, get the wave pushed in, and then go ahead and perhaps get a tower plate. The only reason why that really worked out is because Alistar engaged onto us when Jhin wasn't really in range and ready to follow up yet, which is obviously why we take the fight and punish that kind of mistake from Alistar. Of course, as an engaged support, you only really want to engage if your ADC or your team can follow up. And since he really engaged on me and Jhin was nowhere near, he pretty much just wasted all of his CC when really Jhin could not follow up at all. Jhin of course did follow up with the root, but by the time he actually got into range to do anything, basically Alistar had no spells. Jhin himself can really only auto attack me, and in a pure auto attack battle, of course, with Soraka on my side and with Alistar having no spells, we are of course gonna win that pretty hard. So really, we're kind of just capitalizing on the enemy team's mistakes here, mainly the Alistar of course. And of course, it's going to work out somewhat well for us. So here we're back in the lane. Everybody has their ult back up. Alistar has his ult. I have my ult. And summoner spell situation. Basically, everyone has the summoner spells almost back up. My Ghost is almost back up, and so is Jhin. So the lane kind of just resets a little bit. Of course, the major difference here is that we have our Immortal Shield Bow, which is going to be a really huge difference. Here, once again, Alistar makes the same mistake of engaging onto This time the Soraka when Jin isn't actually nearby. So we get a lot of free damage onto the Alistar. However, this time the Twitch is actually around here. So here, what we're going to do is we're just going to block the bullets of Jin for the Soraka, and Soraka can just heal us up, so no big deal here. Orianna comes in off of the rotation, and here I'm trying to use my ulti to finish off the Twitch. Unfortunately, Jin blocks it. Jin is forced to flash away from me and the Orianna to just play safe. Twitch is really low as well. And now, of course, Twitch is their jungler, so this allows us to quickly capitalize by going straight for the dragon, and the enemy team cannot really respond because they're all kind of stuck in base, kind of just getting their health. So here, we are able to get the dragon. Dragon, of course, gives us a reset. So here, we've yet to back and really spend the gold that we've gotten recently. So this reset allows us to once again just clear out the wave. And here, because we see Alistar and Twitch up in the Herald fight, of course there's 4 people at the Herald fight, Jin is actually alone here. So this actually gives us an opportunity to try to, instead of backing and buying, trying to force the wave in and seeing if we can get plates, or seeing if we can perhaps even get a solo kill on Jin if he makes a mistake. Here I'm going to launch my ult to see if I can help out my team. Ends up hitting only the Alistar, which is not really the valuable target that I wanted to hit. So here, of course, Jin has really good wave clear, so it's really difficult to really do very much against him. Here he makes the mistake of stepping up a little bit too far, which actually allows us to get in a very decent chunk. So if he makes any mistake now, and if he sticks around, he's definitely going to die here. So if I were him, I would probably just back and give up a tower plate or 2, which looks like it's what he does. So he does end up going back to base, and this of course allows us to pick up a tower plate. But because we are Jinx, and Jinx gets a lot of ramping attack speed from her Q, we're actually able to pick up not just 1 tower plate, not just 2 tower plates, but nearly the entire tower here. Unfortunately, the minions do run out, so Soraka ends up tanking a tower shot. It gets really dangerous for her. Ironically, this becomes a blessing in disguise because Jin gets completely baited into just running in, and with the attack speed we stacked up off of the tower, we are able to just simply, literally just minigun him down. We didn't even have to ult here, we still had our ult, and off the kill, we're able to actually get first turret of the game. Of course, our team also has the Rift Herald, so despite getting this first tower, we can even use the Rift Herald to get even more plates, so this is pretty huge. Here we are able to complete our Berserker's Greaves as well as get components for our IE. Of course, we are now at this point really fed, where we are like 2-0-1, which is not the most fed in the world. But as you guys can see, compared to the 6-3 Irelia, who has like 4 full kills more than us, we are actually more fed than her. And the reason why we're more fed than her is because, of course, number 1, we've gotten some kills. Number 2, we've of course gotten all of the CS. And number 3, we've actually gotten the entire tower. So here we actually try to snipe Jin with the ulti, doesn't quite work out. Of course, as Jinx, you really, most of the time you want to try out for those long range snipes. If you see someone low, you really don't have too much to lose when it comes to just trying for those long range snipes. If you get the kill, amazing. If you miss, so be it. Here Alistar just kind of walks around here, really funny situation. However, we see that Fiora's flashing in. Unfortunately, Soraka gets rooted, so here, you know, she's in a bit of trouble. I'm popping the ghost to sort of run away and kite. Here they're actually all honestly pretty low, so here I'm actually thinking that, you know, a fight is possible, but we don't want to take unnecessary risks, so we're just going to walk away and back off, and just going to recall at this point. Don't really want to take any sort of unnecessary risk. You know, we're really fed here. We don't really need to take this fight, if, you know, nothing to fight over anyway, so let's not, you know, let's not do that. Here we're trying for the snipe again with the ulti, and this time we actually hit the snipe onto the Swain, and we get, you know, the kill. So once again, really good snipe from us. Of course, the previous one wasn't really good actually, but it's a good attempt, I guess you could say. So here a full-on fight just breaks out. Now here Jin and Alistar trying to chase. I'm of course focusing the Jin. Ori gets the kill onto Jin. I'm flashing over, minigunning Alistar down. I don't know why he's running sideways. He should be running back, like towards his base, but he's running sideways, which gives me enough time to take him out. And off of those 4 kills, only Swain is left, who has just respawned, and we're able to actually get an inhib at 9 minutes into the game. Here I actually get spotted by Ghost Power, doesn't really matter. I'm helping to, of course, leash the blue buff for either Orianna or Soraka to take. Although it's really good if Jinx gets blue buff, because this basically gives her unlimited mana to just cast her rockets, but it's honestly going to be more useful on someone like Soraka or even Orianna, so I'm going to, you know, be a nice guy and let them take the buff. Instead, here I'm going to back, and I'm going to finish off my IE. Now, while that has happened, Soraka and Orianna actually kind of gets caught out in the enemy jungle, and of course I just backed from around their location, so that's not too hot. Here, they actually survive for a very, very long time because Soraka is able to heal up Orianna, who's taking the damage. But unfortunately, Orianna actually kind of ditches the Soraka, and Soraka just ends up dying instead. Here, Jin is way out of position, gets slowed down by Orianna, gets slowed down by my W as well. I'm able to pick up the reset onto him, and I'm going to go onto the Alistar now with, of course, the bonus attack speed of the reset. Here, Swain tries to go on us, and we're instead just going to blast him down with the minigun. We try to actually get the last hit onto the Alistar, but Orianna ends up picking up the kill instead. No big deal. And here I was thinking of actually falling back onto the dragon, but my team is more interested in going for the towers, which is not exactly a bad move either, because obviously securing towers is really good as well. Enemy team has a huge wave pushing in mid, so they are going to have to kind of respond to that wave. So in the meanwhile, we're actually able to pick up the tier 2 in bot, and here we're trying to actually force down the inhibitor as well, which we do manage to get. Fiora tries to defend it, but ends up getting chunked out instead for her efforts. So we actually end up picking up 2 towers, including the inhibitor, which is huge because obviously inhibitor gives so much pressure. In the meanwhile, Irelia is soloing the dragon. I don't need to be there to help to pick up the dragon, so instead I'm just going to do some counter jungling. We actually pick up the wolves, and here Alistar, no idea what he's doing, trying to solo, like, defend his jungle. Here, unfortunately though, we do get kind of caught out, and here we're actually trying to block for Soraka, but what ends up happening is we end up taking too much damage from both Twitch and Jin, and we end up dying and giving the shutdown over to Jin, which is pretty unfortunate. However, our team is pretty much cleaning up the rest of the fight here, and yeah, it's still a really dominant position for my team. Obviously, that was an error in judgment for trying to block for the Soraka. Probably could have just flashed out of the way of the last shot eventually, but we of course did not do that, so we do end up paying for our sins. Here you can see that honestly the match is so won at this point. We're 10k gold ahead. So long as we don't just throw right here or anywhere else, the match is pretty much won. Of course, Rammus does end up dying. I try to actually snipe down the low HP targets, but doesn't quite happen. And this looks like it's turning into a throw angle, where my team is just overstaying in the enemy base and just giving over all of the kills. And it does kind of end up becoming that. Everyone basically ends up dying. And I just respawn. I'm just going straight to the jungle, picking up red buff as well as other farm. Obviously, I would never reach the enemy base in time, even if I were to run just straight there. So honestly, we don't really lose out too much by just going for the farm instead. Here I was postulating that the enemy team could be on Baron, which is why I'm being very cautious, but ends up that they're just busy clearing out their minion waves, which is perfectly understandable for a team who has lost both of the inhibitors, at like 9-10 minutes into the game. So here I actually secured the Skull Vision to ensure that they will not be able to sneak a Baron. But honestly, at this point, my whole team has revived. I have no idea what Rammus is doing here. Why is he going in like 1v5? So I'm getting zoned away by the Swain here. I'm just trying to blast whoever is in my range. In this case, it's the Swain. Jin ult comes in. Once again, I'm in rocket from just blasting whoever I can. Of course, just getting some basically poke damage here. Rammus, after escaping with his life, goes back in again. No idea what he's doing here. Somehow manages to actually survive at 1 HP again, and my team ends up cleaning up the kill on Fiora, and now I'm getting the reset onto Alistar. I'm flashing forward, going onto the Swain. Here I'm just going to finish off the kill onto the Swain, and now I'm going onto the Jin. Exhausted, but still enough damage to kill him. Now going onto the Twitch, and I actually pick up a quadra kill off of that, which actually could have been a penta if I got that first kill on Fiora. So it ends up being pretty unfortunate that I didn't get the penta, but overall, we're going to destroy the enemy team's inhib, and we're just basically going to go for the end at this point. Whole enemy team is dead, and we have 2 minion waves, so we honestly just finished the game just like that, and kind of just carry our team. So anyways, I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.